Welcome to the audiobook of The Great Housing Hijack.
Chapter 17, Rental Rules. A quote. What's the point of a rental commissioner who can't control rents? If you just want someone to tell you to increase housing supply, then there's plenty of property industry lobbyists doing it for free. End quote. That's housing researcher Alastair Sisson noting on X/Twitter that although politicians pretend to want lower rents, they avoid any action that creates the power to control them. That's from April 2023. Let's begin. In early April 2023, the Queensland government floated the idea of limiting how fast rents could be increased each year for sitting tenants. Within hours of their public announcement, the real estate industry was in panic mode. The 9 a.m. announcement by the Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk led quickly to dozens of response articles in the online media, and the 6 o'clock news that day was clogged with property lobbyists explaining with a straight face how bad rental protections for tenants are for tenants. The Victorian government a month later proposed similar limits on rental price increases, and within hours the, quote, real estate experts savaged the move, saying it will decimate the industry. End quote. So many property owner interest groups have for decades voiced their opposition to any regulation of housing rents that is now widely thought to be inefficient or distortionary, and famously believed to be so detrimental to a city's housing market that, quote, next to bombing, rent control seems in many cases to be the most efficient technique so far known for destroying cities. End quote. The reason that rent controls attract such a response from property owners is not that they are inefficient and cumbersome or that they backfire. It's because they work. This section's called Home Ownership is Rent Control but Popular. Imagine for a moment that a wacky new political party imposed the most extreme rent control possible, freezing rents at today's prices in perpetuity and prohibiting the removal of the current tenant. They allowed tenants unlimited rights to sublet the property but obliged them to also pay council rates and property taxes. This would be one of the most extreme versions of rent control imaginable. Yet it is exactly what happens when someone buys a home to live in. The whole point of home ownership is to control the rent, rather than be continually exposed to market pricing by finding a favourable landlord, yourself. The asset value of a home is, after all, just the financial representation of all future rents paid at a fixed upfront price. The only difference with rent control is that the occupant and the name on the property title are different. Because rent control is one of the benefits of home ownership, wealthy cities and countries with stringent rent controls often have lower home ownership. Countries like Switzerland and Germany have strong rental protections, and the majority of people live in rented housing. The lure of escaping the rental market is much lower when the future cost of renting is curtailed. Additionally, because there are so many renter households, there is an influential voting bloc that provides political support for maintaining strict controls. The problem with rent control is that it works, and hence it confronts the symmetry of property markets. The distraction is to pretend that it doesn't. This section's called How Rents Can Be Regulated. First-generation rent controls, or rent freezes, fix rents at a certain point in time and prohibit the owner of that property from raising rents above that level. These have been enacted during wartime in Australia through World Wars I and II and in much of the world. These first-generation rent controls usually allow for higher rents only if landlords renovate or improve the property. This was a free sample of the audiobook of The Great Housing Hijack. To get full access, sign up as a paid subscriber at fresheconomicthinking.com.